Hello guys and welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Leah if you're new here, and I am a portrait photographer here in Cincinnati, Ohio. Today I am super excited to bring you guys this tutorial on how to make your photos look like the Booth by Bryant photos. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, if you don't have TikTok, that is probably one of the reasons. On my For You page though, recently I've been seeing a really cool photographer named Bryant who has a vintage photo booth out in LA. He takes some really fun photos in that photo booth with celebrities and influencers, and I really just love the vintage look that it has. So I wanted to try and see if I could create my own filter to make my photos look exactly like those ones. Obviously we are not using a film camera or any kind of vintage film photo booth. This is basically a tutorial on how to recreate that look with Lightroom and Photoshop. I'm going to be going through and showing you the photos that I took from a little mini photo shoot the other day, and then I'm going to show you how I edited them, give you all of the settings for it so that you guys can do it yourself. I am going to be doing all of this on my desktop and computer. Alright, let's go ahead and get into the tutorial. On the screen here you'll see some of the photos that I did for this shoot. I was kind of inspired by just the randomness that is Booth by Bryant when you look on their Instagram. Let's go ahead and pull up their Instagram. Cool vintage film looking photos that just look really fun and different compared to what we're seeing, you know, in the everyday of photography nowadays. So this just looks so fun, and it makes everyone look good. Like the shadows look so cool and the contrast and kind of that like grungy look. And for the most part, which is what I took influence off of, is the fact that most of them are just a white wall behind them, which is pretty typical and standard for a photo booth. I'm gonna go ahead and go off of Nessa Barrett's famous Booth by Bryant photo, and we're gonna kind of take from that and use that as our reference for creating our editing. Went ahead and picked out a bunch of different photos from the shoot that I did. I basically just set up my R6 right over back there against my white wall and took some photos with it. It's like trying to be fun and very trendy. Went ahead and picked out all of my favorites and put them into Lightroom. So let's go ahead and go over to Lightroom. I have a ton of these already edited. Here is a couple examples from there. I seriously love them so much, but I did not stop here. So this is just like part one of the edit, and then we'll go to Photoshop and kind of do the rest of the edit there. So let's go ahead and go to my original photo. This is what the photo looks like straight out of camera. There's no editing done to this. You can see before, after. Nothing is done to it. So there are a couple ways you could go about this. Your first kind of part you need to get to is obviously the black and white. In Lightroom you can hit the V key on your keyboard and that'll automatically make your photo black and white. However, I noticed in the Booth by Bryant photos, if you take a look, there's kind of like this sepia tone to it, and I didn't want to just go for straight black and white. So I actually did something else that you can do, which is go to your color and HSL bars, and I'm going to turn all of my saturations down. I personally like this because I could still go in and add in a little bit of yellows or oranges to get to that sepia tone. Of course, there are millions of ways you could edit these to get the same kind of look, but that is personally just what I decided to do. Next, I'm gonna go up to my exposure. I'm just gonna lighten it just a little bit to get my wall in the back a little bit brighter. Go off of our reference photo. There is a lot of shadows here and a lot of dark blacks, but it's also very like grained out and kind of gives like a very vintage grungy look. So I'm gonna go ahead and blast my contrast up to 59. Highlights, I just put my highlights down just a tiny bit to make sure that it's not too bright. And then for my shadows, I went ahead and brought those down as well. Then we're gonna go ahead and go to my whites. I put those up a little bit, and for my blacks, I just brought those down to a -4. Now we're gonna go ahead and go down to texture, because in these kind of cameras, they're not gonna pick up the most amount of detail. So I kind of wanted to fake that by bringing my texture down and my clarity up. I had to do all of my texture basically with grain instead. Clarity, I brought that up to +30. Haze, I put that up to 18 a little bit, again, just to give it a little more of a punch. Last thing for this kind of first basic panel, we're gonna go to vibrance and put that up to 30, saturation to -30. So because this photo has a little more brown tones than actual black and white, we're gonna go ahead and pull back our reds, oranges, and yellows just a tiny little bit. We're gonna go down to noise reduction, and I'm putting my noise reduction at 70, again, to kind of give it that faded look a little bit. Now, one of the most important parts to really create this look, we're gonna go down to grain. This is where you really start to see things coming together. For my grain on the amount, I'm gonna do 40. On the size of the grain, I'm gonna go to 22, and for roughness, I'm going to 67, and there we have it. Now, last thing we're gonna do is go back to my curves. Don't ask me why I do this order, I have no idea. First point up to 0 and 20 25, 53 over 75. I'm gonna bring another point to 197 over 193, and the last point stays up at 255. Let's go back to here. Basically what we're gonna do is bring our warmth really, really high. I'm gonna bring this down a little bit because it looks a little too pink for my liking. Once you feel like you're good with your base edit, then we're gonna go ahead and export this into Photoshop. All right, now that we've imported our photo into Photoshop, you're probably wondering how we get that kind of old vintage looking film effect on our photo, and it's super simple as long as you're not going to use this for any selling purposes. You're gonna go ahead and go onto Google and search old film texture. One that I chose is this one right here. I went ahead and just brought that over to my desktop. We're gonna go ahead and bring that into Photoshop and fit it to be completely covering our entire photo. Command T to transform, and we're gonna put that over top. We're gonna put the opacity to 22%. Now the problem is that we lost a little bit of our contrast, so we're gonna go ahead and bring that back by going to our adjustment layer, selecting brightness and contrast, and we're gonna go ahead and put our brightness at 35 and our contrast to 43. I'm gonna add an adjustment layer of levels and find that. My middle ground at 0.74, and my other ones can stay at 0 and 255. This is probably one of the most important parts into really getting that sepia tone. We're gonna go ahead and find the adjustment called Photo Filter. And you're going to select the color, and you're going to create that color yourself. I went with more of a red toned orange. And if you want the hex code, it is F28329. Then for my density, I'm gonna put that at 15. Here's a look at our reference photo again, and here's a look at what we have so far. This is the last thing that we're gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and make a clipping mask to old film texture. We're gonna go ahead and go to our adjustments again, and I'm going to find the one that says curves. With the curves, I'm gonna go ahead and create a clipping mask, which means it'll basically only apply that specific adjustment to the layer that we're telling it to, which in our case is the old film texture layer. I'm just playing around with these curves a little bit to just create it back to where I want it to go. And you can honestly just play around with it so much. That is my favorite part of being a photographer and editor and all this different stuff, is just getting to play around and see what you like the best. Here is another photo that I did, is with all the adjustments off of it. This is how we first brought it in from Lightroom. Here is with the film texture on, the curves on top of that film texture, photo filter, which is the warming filter, the levels, and then our brightness and contrast. Okay, now that we are fully done with the editing, I did want to show you guys just some inspiration photos if you need them. I'm going to show you all of the finished photos that I did for this Booth by Bryant inspired photo shoot. Again, a lot with the sucker, the lip gloss, the sunglasses. I even had some clear glasses. Here's the telephone that I did, and then the camera. There could be something super easy out there that is just a click of a button, but this is just a more in-depth way of doing it from a professional side of view. This one allows you to kind of have more freedom over what you want your photo to look like. So, alright guys, that is it for my tutorial today. I hope you guys enjoyed it and learned something new about Lightroom and Photoshop. And if you like this video, make sure to give it a huge thumbs up. Subscribe so you never miss out on any other videos from me. Alright guys, I will see you in the next one. Bye!